John moved quietly through the darkness, his heart beating fast. Around him, he could hear explosions and shouting, the sounds of the fierce battle echoing through the air. He was a young soldier, new to the war, but already he knew the terrible cost it carried. He held his weapon tightly, moving from one cover to another, trying to stay hidden. Suddenly, a blast erupted nearby, sending John flying through the air. Pain shot through his body as he landed hard on the ground. He groaned and tried to stand, but the sharp pain forced him back down. John reached out, feeling his leg wet with blood. Fear gripped him as he realized he was badly hurt. John lay there, breathing heavily, wondering if this was how his story would end. He closed his eyes for a moment, fighting against the darkness that wanted to take him. When he opened them again, he noticed someone kneeling beside him. The figure wore a helmet and armor that hid their face, but their movements were calm and gentle. The mysterious figure quickly took out medical supplies, moving with skill and urgency. John felt a slight prick as the stranger injected him with something to ease the pain. He tried to speak, to ask who they were, but the words wouldn't come. The figure put a gentle hand on his shoulder, offering silent reassurance. "Stay calm," the stranger said softly, their voice muffled by the helmet. "You're going to make it." John watched as his unknown rescuer carefully wrapped his wounds, stopping the bleeding. The figure worked quickly, ignoring the danger around them. The battle still raged nearby, but the stranger seemed unaffected, completely focused on saving John's life. John's vision blurred and he began to drift away, the pain fading into numbness. He tried again to speak, desperate to thank this mysterious savior, but consciousness slipped away from him. When John woke again, he was lying in a medical facility, the bright lights harsh against his eyes. He blinked slowly, trying to remember how he got there. Around him, medical personnel moved quickly, attending to other injured soldiers. John reached down, feeling the bandages wrapped around his wounds. He knew he had survived something terrible. He asked a nearby nurse about the person who had saved him, but she only shook her head. No one seemed to know who had rescued him from the battlefield. John felt a deep sense of confusion and gratitude. He wished he could find the stranger to thank them personally, but there was no trace, no clue to their identity. Weeks passed as John recovered. His wounds healed, but the mystery of his savior stayed with him. He often wondered who the person was, why they risked their life to save him. Eventually, John returned to active duty, determined to fight harder, inspired by the courage and kindness of the stranger who had helped him. Years later, John had grown from a young soldier into an experienced and respected pilot. His missions now took him across many planets and space stations, and he had become accustomed to the vast emptiness of space. But despite the time that had passed, he never forgot the unknown figure who had saved his life. One day, John found himself landing on a distant neutral outpost. The bustling marketplace was filled with aliens and humans alike, all busy trading and talking. He wandered through the crowd, enjoying the vibrant scene. Then, suddenly, he saw a woman standing by a stall, examining some strange fruits. John froze in place, feeling a strange familiarity. Her posture, the way she moved, it reminded him strongly of someone from his past. He watched her carefully, noticing her quick, confident gestures. She turned slightly, and their eyes met for a brief moment. John's heart skipped a beat. There was something about her eyes, something deeply familiar, yet he couldn't quite place it. Before he could approach, she quickly turned and disappeared into the crowd. John tried to follow, pushing through the busy marketplace, but she was gone. He stood there, confused and frustrated. Who was she? Why did she feel so familiar? That evening, John sat alone in his quarters, unable to shake the feeling of recognition. Memories flooded back to him, the battlefield, the pain, the gentle hands that had saved him. Could it really be her after all these years? He wasn't sure, but something inside him urged him to find out. John decided he couldn't leave without knowing the truth. He began asking around the outpost, describing the woman he had seen. Most people shrugged or shook their heads, not recognizing his description. But John refused to give up. He felt a powerful need to find her, to understand why she seemed so connected to his past. After days of searching, John finally caught sight of her again, this time in a quiet area away from the marketplace. Gathering his courage, he approached. Slowly, trying not to startle her. "Excuse me," John called softly, his voice uncertain. The woman turned around quickly, her expression guarded. Their eyes met again, and John felt the same strange sense of recognition. "Do I know you?" he asked, his voice hopeful yet cautious. She hesitated, looking at him carefully. After a long pause, she shook her head slowly, her eyes revealing nothing. "No, I don't think so," she replied quietly, then quickly turned away and disappeared once more, leaving John standing alone, his heart filled with unanswered questions. John couldn't sleep that night. The mysterious encounter replayed repeatedly in his mind. He lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering who the woman was and why she felt so familiar. Eventually, exhaustion overcame him, and he drifted into a restless sleep filled with dreams of the battlefield and gentle hands healing his wounds. Morning came with bright sunlight filtering into his quarters. John rose slowly, feeling heavy and thoughtful. He dressed and walked to a small cafe near the marketplace, hoping breakfast would clear his mind. He sat by a window, quietly drinking coffee and watching people passing by, each lost in their own world. Suddenly, his eyes caught sight of her again. She was standing near a vendor, carefully looking through various items. John felt a surge of determination. Leaving payment on the table, he quickly stepped outside, moving purposefully toward her. "Please, wait," John called out, causing the woman to pause. She turned to him slowly, eyes guarded but curious. John stopped, breathing deeply, trying to find the right words. "I'm sorry," he began quietly. "I don't mean to bother you, but I can't shake the feeling that we've met before. You remind me of someone from a long time ago." She regarded him silently for a moment, uncertainty clear in her eyes. Finally, she sighed softly and nodded toward a quieter part of the market. John followed her through the crowded area until they reached a small, secluded bench. They sat in silence briefly, each waiting for the other to speak first. John broke the silence gently. "My name is John," he said softly, offering a cautious smile. "I served as a soldier years ago. During a battle, someone saved my life. I never found out who it was, but you remind me so much of that person." The woman hesitated, her eyes softening just a little. "I'm Claire," she replied quietly, her voice carrying a gentle strength. "And I don't believe we've officially met before." John noticed the careful way she chose her words, feeling she was hiding. "Something? Were you a soldier?" he asked, hopeful yet cautious. Claire paused again, seeming to consider her answer carefully. "I served briefly," she finally admitted, her voice low. "But that was a long time ago." John's heart quickened with excitement. Could it have been? "You? Were you there on Epsilon Prime years ago?" "I was badly wounded, and someone helped me. Someone I never got the chance to thank." Claire's eyes shifted away, a shadow of sadness crossing her face. "Epsilon Prime was a bad place," she said slowly. "Many people fought and died there." "But not me," John pressed softly, hope rising in his chest. "Someone brave stayed with me. They risked their life for mine. Please, if you know anything." Claire stood abruptly, turning away. "I'm sorry," she said quietly, her voice filled with regret. "I can't help you. You must be mistaken." Before John could respond, Claire walked swiftly away, disappearing once more into the crowd. John sat alone on the bench, confusion and disappointment mixing inside him. He was certain now, more than ever, that Claire was the one who had saved him. But why wouldn't she admit it? Determined not to lose her again, John started asking around about Claire, hoping someone might know more about her. Most people shook their heads or gave vague answers, but John kept searching, unwilling to give up. Finally, an elderly vendor provided a clue. "She keeps to herself mostly," the old man said quietly. "But I've seen her around the northern quarter. She seems sad, troubled. Perhaps you can help her." John thanked him gratefully and hurried toward the northern quarter, heart racing with hope. He explored every street, every hidden alley, asking quietly if anyone had seen Claire. After several hours, he found her at last, sitting alone by a quiet fountain, staring thoughtfully at the water dot slowly. He approached, making sure she saw him coming. Claire looked up, her expression wary, but resigned. "She didn't run this time. Why won't you talk to me?" John asked gently, sitting beside her. "I just want to thank you. You gave me a second chance at life." Claire sighed, sadness filling her eyes. "I did what anyone would have done," she murmured softly. "It was my duty." "No," John insisted firmly. "It wasn't just duty. You risked your life. I remember the way you spoke, your kindness." It was personal. Claire closed her eyes, breathing deeply. When she opened them again, they were filled with quiet pain. "There are things you don't know," she whispered. "Things that happened after Epsilon Prime. Things I wish I could forget." "You don't have to carry that alone," John told her gently. "Please, let me help." Claire studied his face, seeing sincerity and kindness in his eyes. Slowly she nodded, her defenses crumbling just a little. "Maybe," she said softly. "Maybe it's time to talk." They sat together by the fountain as Claire began to speak, her voice filled with quiet strength. She described her days in the military, the mission she carried out, and the pain and loss she'd endured. John listened intently, understanding why she had withdrawn, hiding herself from the world. Finally, she told him about the rescue, how she had seen him wounded, vulnerable, and how something inside her had refused to leave him behind. It had haunted her ever since, a reminder of a past filled with both courage and sorrow. When she finished speaking, John reached out carefully, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You saved me," he whispered softly. "Let me return the favor. You don't have to face this alone." Claire met his eyes, a small, uncertain smile forming on her lips. For the first time in years, she felt the burden of her past beginning to ease. And in that quiet moment, sitting by the fountain, she allowed herself to trust again, knowing that perhaps together they could find peace. John and Claire spent the following days quietly getting to know each other. As they talked, they discovered how much they had in common. Both had faced the harsh realities of war, carried the weight of difficult memories, and yearned for a sense of peace. Despite their differences, they found comfort in each other's presence. One afternoon, while sitting at a small cafe on the outpost, Claire revealed more about her past. Her voice was soft, filled with emotion she rarely showed. "After Epsilon Prime," Claire began slowly, "my unit was given another mission. It was dangerous, and many didn't come back. We were betrayed, John. Someone from within our ranks betrayed. John listened quietly, sensing the deep pain in her words. "What happened?" He asked softly, careful not to push her too hard. Claire took a deep breath. "We were ambushed. Half the team was lost in minutes. I barely escaped, but command blamed me. They needed someone to blame, and I became their target." John shook his head, anger rising inside him. "That's wrong. They can't just blame you for something you didn't do." Claire offered a small, sad smile. "Sometimes they can. I've been on the run ever since, always looking over my shoulder, never feeling safe." John felt his resolve strengthen. "You're not alone anymore," he said firmly. "I'll help you clear your name." Claire looked at him, her eyes uncertain yet hopeful. "It's dangerous, John. The people after me are powerful. They won't stop. Then, neither will we," John answered, determination filling his voice. Together, they began planning their next steps. They knew they needed proof to expose those responsible. Their journey would be risky, but neither was willing to back down. As they planned, John and Claire became even closer. They shared stories of their past, hopes for the future, and small moments of laughter that brightened their difficult days. John admired Claire's strength, the quiet courage she showed despite her pain. Claire, in turn, found comfort in John's unwavering support. Soon, they prepared to leave the safety of the outpost. They knew the risks ahead, but they also understood it was their only chance to find the truth. The day of departure arrived. John and Claire boarded a small shuttle, hidden among cargo vessels to avoid attracting attention. John piloted carefully, keeping an eye on scanners, making sure no one followed them. Claire sat beside him, calm and alert. Hours passed as they traveled quietly through space, heading toward an abandoned military outpost where Claire believed they could find evidence. She explained the mission logs stored there might prove her innocence. As they approached their destination, John's scanners suddenly flashed red. "We have company," he warned. His voice tense. Claire quickly checked the scanners. "They found us," she confirmed, her voice calm despite the danger. "We need to land quickly." John skillfully guided the shuttle down toward the old outpost. The ship shook as enemy fire narrowly missed them. Claire readied herself, determination shining in her eyes. John landed roughly but safely, immediately, preparing for a fight. "Let's move," Claire said urgently, already heading toward the shuttle's exit. John followed closely. Grabbing their gear as they rushed outside. The abandoned outpost was silent and dark, filled with shadows and memories of battles past. Claire navigated swiftly, clearly familiar with the layout. John kept pace, weapon ready, constantly scanning their surroundings. They reached the command center, and Claire quickly began accessing the terminals, looking for the mission logs they needed. John stood guard at the entrance, alert and ready for any threat. Moments later, enemy footsteps echoed through the halls. John steadied his breathing, tightening his grip on his weapon. The first attackers appeared, and he fired precisely, keeping them at bay. "Hurry, Claire," John called urgently, knowing they wouldn't have much time. "Almost there," Claire replied, fingers flying across the controls. Finally, she accessed the data they needed, quickly downloading everything onto a portable. "Drive. Got it," she shouted triumphantly, turning to John just as more enemies stormed toward them. Together, they fought back, moving swiftly toward their shuttle, determined to escape. As they neared their vessel, an explosion rocked the area, knocking John to the ground. Claire quickly helped him to his feet, her eyes filled with concern. "Are you all right?" she asked, steadying him. "Fine," John replied, shaking off the dizziness. "Let's keep going." They finally reached their shuttle, narrowly escaping enemy fire. John launched them into space, quickly putting distance between themselves and their attackers. Claire sat beside him, breathing heavily, her hands tightly gripping the data drive. They traveled in silence, each reflecting on the danger they narrowly escaped. Finally, Claire spoke softly, her voice filled with gratitude. "Thank you, John. I wouldn't have made it without you." John smiled warmly, glancing at her briefly. "We made it together, and we'll finish this together." Claire nodded, comforted by his words. They knew their fight wasn't over, but for the first time in years, Claire felt true hope. As they traveled onward, John silently vowed to protect Claire, no matter the cost. He remembered the gentle hands that had saved him years ago, now determined to be the strength Claire needed. Their journey was far from over, but together they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. John and Claire traveled carefully, always watching for danger. They knew the information they had was valuable, and dangerous people would want it back. After days of careful travel, they reached another neutral space station where they hoped to examine the data safely. Inside a small rented room, Claire connected the data drive to a secure device. John stood nearby, watching closely. They waited anxiously as the information loaded, knowing their future depended on what they found. Finally, Claire started reading through the data. Her eyes widened as she realized what she had found. "It's all here," she whispered, excitement and relief clear in her voice. "The proof we need to clear my name." The betrayal was planned by high-ranking officers. "It's worse than I thought." John leaned closer, reading over her shoulder. Anger filled him as he understood the extent of the betrayal. "We have to get this information to the right people," he said firmly. Claire nodded, determination shining in her eyes. "I know someone we can trust," she replied softly. "Commander Sophie Harris. She was my mentor once, and she's one of the few honest people left." John agreed, trusting Claire's judgment. They quickly arranged a secure meeting with Commander Harris on a distant outpost. Before leaving, they carefully copied the information onto multiple devices, ensuring it would remain safe. The journey to the meeting point was tense. John and Claire barely spoke, each lost in their thoughts. Finally, they arrived at the remote outpost. They moved quietly through the small station, reaching a hidden room where Commander Harris waited. Commander Sophie Harris greeted them warmly, though her eyes were serious. "It's good to see you alive, Claire," she said gently, embracing her. Former student briefly, "I knew you weren't responsible." Claire smiled, grateful for the commander's support. "We've brought proof," Claire explained quickly. Handing over one of the data drives, Harris examined the information carefully, her expression growing darker with each moment. Finally, she looked up, anger and determination clear in her eyes. "This is worse than we imagined. The corruption goes deep. But now we have what we need to stop them." Before they could discuss further plans, alarms suddenly blared throughout the outpost. Commander Harris reacted instantly. "They've found us," she warned urgently. "We must escape quickly." John, Claire, and Commander Harris rushed through the Thura corridors, alarms ringing loudly in their ears. They reached the docking bay, but enemy soldiers were already waiting. Without hesitation, they fought fiercely, determined not to lose everything they'd worked so hard to achieve. Amidst the chaos, John saw Claire fighting bravely, her movements precise and focused. He admired her strength and courage, inspired to fight even harder. Together, they pushed back the enemy, creating a brief opening. "Get to the shuttle," Commander Harris ordered firmly. John and Claire obeyed, rushing forward as Harris covered their escape. Suddenly, Claire stumbled, a stray shot hitting her shoulder. She cried out, falling to the ground. John immediately turned back, his heart pounding in fear. He knelt beside her quickly, checking her injury. "It's not serious," Claire assured him weakly, struggling to stand. John helped her up carefully, his protective instincts strong. "Lean on me," he said gently. "We'll make it together." They reached the shuttle, Harris quickly joining them after ensuring they were safe. John piloted them away swiftly, leaving the enemy behind. As they moved into the safety of space, John glanced worriedly at Claire. Commander Harris treated Claire's wound carefully, praising her bravery. Claire smiled softly, grateful but exhausted. "We need to expose this corruption publicly," Harris said seriously. "It's our only chance to end this nightmare." John agreed firmly, his determination stronger than ever. "Tell us what you need us to do," he replied without hesitation. Commander Harris outlined their next steps carefully. They would head to a secure communication hub, broadcasting the evidence widely to ensure it couldn't be hidden again. John and Claire knew the risks were high, but they didn't hesitate. Their resolve was unwavering. As Claire rested, John sat quietly beside her, watching her carefully. He admired her strength and courage, feeling deeply connected to her after everything they'd faced together. Claire opened her eyes slowly, seeing John's gentle gaze. She smiled softly, her eyes filled with quiet gratitude. "Thank you, John," she whispered quietly. John returned her smile warmly. "I promised I'd help you," he replied softly, sincerity clear in his voice. "We'll finish this together." Claire nodded, comforted by his unwavering support. They knew their journey wasn't finished yet, but they were ready to face whatever challenges awaited them. side by side. John piloted the shuttle carefully toward the secure communication hub. The quiet hum of the engines filled the small craft as it moved swiftly through space. Commander Harris sat beside him, carefully checking their route while Claire rested. Quietly in the back, still recovering from her injury, the communication hub came into view, floating silently among the stars. It was an isolated station, rarely visited, making it perfect for their mission. John docked the shuttle smoothly, double-checking security systems before opening the doors. "Ready?" John asked softly, turning to Commander Harris and Claire. Commander Harris nodded firmly, her face calm and determined. Claire stood slowly, still weak but steady. "Let's finish this," she replied gently. They moved through the empty corridors cautiously, the silence heavy around them. John felt tension in every step, aware they were taking a significant risk. Finally, they reached the central communication room, filled with various equipment blinking softly. Commander Harris quickly started setting up the broadcast. John helped Claire sit comfortably, keeping a careful eye on their surroundings. He didn't want any surprises. "The broadcast is ready," Commander Harris finally announced, her voice steady. "Once we send this, there's no turning back." "Do it," Claire replied without hesitation. Her eyes bright with determination. Harris activated the communication systems, sending the evidence far and wide. Their message exposed the betrayal clearly, naming those responsible and providing undeniable proof. The broadcast quickly spread, reaching numerous systems and stations. Ensuring no one could hide the truth anymore. As they finished, John heard a distant alarm. He knew their enemies had found them again. "We need to go," he warned quickly. Grabbing his weapon, they hurried back toward their shuttle, moving as fast as Claire could manage. Enemy soldiers appeared, blocking their path. John and Commander Harris immediately took defensive positions, firing precisely and pushing their attackers back. "Keep moving," John urged, helping Claire forward as Harris continued to cover their escape. The fight was intense, but their determination was stronger. Step by step, they fought their way back to the docking bay. As they reached the shuttle, another explosion shook the station, throwing everyone to the ground. John quickly recovered, his ears ringing. He saw Claire lying still, her eyes closed. "Claire!" John shouted, rushing to her side, panic filling his chest. Gently he checked her pulse, relieved to feel it steady beneath his fingers. She opened her eyes slowly, weakly smiling at him. "I'm okay," Claire whispered softly. Trying to reassure him, John carefully lifted her, moving quickly toward the shuttle. Commander Harris joined them, keeping attackers at bay. They boarded swiftly, John securing Claire carefully before taking the controls. They launched from the station as more enemy ships arrived. John piloted expertly, evading enemy fire and pushing the shuttle to its limits. He focused entirely, determined to get Claire and Commander Harris safely away. Finally, after tense minutes, they escaped, leaving the enemy behind. John guided them to a distant safe haven, a hidden outpost known only to Commander Harris. Upon landing, he carefully carried Claire to medical facilities, making sure she received immediate attention. As Claire recovered, John stayed close, rarely leaving her side. Commander Harris kept them updated on the situation outside. The broadcast had worked. The galaxy knew the truth. People were demanding justice, and corrupt officials were being exposed and arrested. Claire slowly regained her strength, her determination unwavering. John admired her courage deeply, feeling more connected to her each day. He realized how important she had become to him, and he knew he would always stand by her side. One evening, as they sat together quietly, Claire looked at John thoughtfully. "We did it," she said gently, relief and gratitude clear in her voice. John nodded, smiling warmly. "You did it," he replied sincerely. "You showed everyone the truth." "I couldn't have done it without you," Claire whispered softly, taking his hand gently. John felt warmth spread through him at her touch. "I promised you wouldn't face this alone," he replied quietly, "and I meant it." Claire smiled softly, her eyes shining with warmth and gratitude. They sat quietly, enjoying the peace of the moment, knowing their fight was finally ending. In the following days, reports came from across the galaxy of changes happening quickly. The evidence they provided had sparked widespread reform. Claire's name was cleared completely, her bravery recognized publicly. Finally, Commander Harris brought official news. "You're both heroes now," she announced warmly. "You've changed everything." Claire and John exchanged a quiet, proud glance. They had faced impossible odds together, and now their efforts had made a real difference. Commander Harris smiled warmly, knowing they had earned this moment of peace. As John and Claire walked together under a peaceful sky, John paused briefly, looking deeply into Claire's eyes. "You saved me once," he said softly, gently taking her hand again. "Now we've saved each other." Claire smiled warmly, nodding gently. "We're stronger together," she replied, leaning into him slightly. They stood quietly, feeling a deep sense of calm and contentment. After everything they'd been through, they'd found peace in each other. Knowing they had built something truly special. Together, they faced the future with hope, ready for whatever lay ahead, confident they could overcome anything as long as they were side by side. John and Claire enjoyed their peaceful days at the hidden outpost, slowly recovering from their intense experiences. Every morning, they walked together, sharing quiet moments, appreciating the calm they fought so hard to achieve. However, their peace was soon interrupted by an urgent message from Commander Harris. She explained that although many corrupt officials have been arrested, some still remain free. One, in particular, General Alex Turner, was actively hunting them. He was desperate, knowing he had lost everything because of their actions. John and Claire knew their safety depended on stopping General Turner. They met with Commander Harris to plan their next steps. "We must find him before he finds us," Commander Harris stated firmly. "General Turner is dangerous. He has many loyal followers still hiding within our ranks." "We'll help," Claire responded immediately, determination clear in her voice. Commander Harris nodded gratefully. "We have information that he's hiding on an abandoned moon base. We must capture him quickly and end this threat." John and Claire prepared themselves once more, feeling the weight of their mission but confident in each other. They boarded a small, swift ship provided by Commander Harris and set out for the moon base. The base appeared lifeless as they approached. John landed the ship carefully, hiding it among rocky cliffs to avoid detection. Quietly, they moved forward, carefully watching every shadow, knowing General Turner was dangerous and desperate. As they entered the base, the silence felt heavy and threatening. Carefully, they moved through dark corridors, their footsteps quiet, alert for any movement. Suddenly, alarms blared, lights flashing urgently around them. "It's a trap," Claire shouted, quickly moving into a defensive position. Armed soldiers emerged from hidden rooms, surrounding them instantly. General Turner appeared, his face twisted with anger. "You two have caused me enough trouble," he snarled. Stepping closer, John stepped protectively in front of Claire, meeting Turner's gaze. Calmly, "You caused your own trouble," John replied firmly. "Your actions hurt many innocent people." General Turner's eyes flashed dangerously. "No matter," he replied coldly. "No one will remember your efforts once you're gone." John and Claire exchanged a quick, knowing glance, silently agreeing on their plan. Without warning, they sprang into action, moving together seamlessly, fighting with determination and skill. The battle was intense, soldiers closing in, but John and Claire fought bravely, their bond giving them strength. Slowly, they pushed back the attackers, gaining ground, forcing General Turner to retreat. John followed closely, cornering Turner in the control room. Turner turned desperately, aiming his weapon at John, who reacted swiftly, knocking the weapon away. "It's over," John said firmly, standing tall and unafraid. "You can't run from your actions anymore." Turner glared defiantly, eyes filled with hatred. "You think you've won, but others will rise. They'll continue my work." "No," Claire said, quietly stepping into the room. We've shown people the truth. No one will follow you now. Suddenly, Turner lunged at Claire, desperate and angry. John moved quickly, intercepting him. They struggled briefly before John managed to subdue Turner. Holding him securely, Commander Harris and her team arrived shortly after, quickly taking General Turner into custody. Harris thanked John and Claire sincerely, relief clear in her voice. You've done it, she said gratefully. The final threat has been removed. John and Claire returned to their ship, exhausted but proud. They traveled back to the hidden outpost quietly, knowing they'd finally accomplished their mission. Back at the outpost, they rested deeply, recovering physically and emotionally. Commander Harris visited often, keeping them updated on the positive changes happening throughout the galaxy. Justice was finally being served, and people everywhere felt safer and more hopeful. One quiet evening, Claire and John sat under a clear, starlit sky, reflecting on everything they'd faced together. John took Claire's hand gently, feeling deep gratitude for the bond they'd formed. We did good, John said softly, his voice filled with warmth and sincerity. Claire smiled warmly, nodding gently. Together, she agreed softly. I never imagined finding someone I could trust so completely. John looked deeply into her eyes, feeling a strong connection. I feel the same, he whispered softly. Meeting you changed my life. You saved me in every way possible. Claire squeezed his hand gently, her smile deepening. And you saved me, she replied quietly, her voice filled with emotion. We found strength in each other. They sat quietly, content in the peaceful moment. The trials they'd faced had forged a bond stronger than either had ever known. Now, they could face whatever the future held, confident they would always support each other. As days passed, their peaceful outpost became a true home, filled with comfort and happiness. Commander Harris often visited, bringing news of continued progress. Eventually, she invited them to return to the heart of civilization, assuring them it was safe. John and Claire considered carefully. Though they'd grown to love their peaceful home, they knew they still had much to contribute. Finally, they agreed, preparing to return and help rebuild the world they'd fought so hard to protect. As they prepared to leave, they felt deep satisfaction and excitement. The challenges they'd faced had strengthened them, creating an unbreakable bond. Together, John and Claire boarded their ship, ready to embrace whatever awaited them. They knew their journey was far from over, but they faced the future hand in hand, hearts filled with hope, courage, and unending trust in each other.